Hey everyone, how you doing? Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. The New Year's just around the corner. I just thought I'd come on and say a few things, maybe show off a few things as well. First of all, we're going to get into some of the things I got over Christmas. I got some really cool things, and I don't normally do a show and tell, but some of the stuff I highly recommend that you pick up. So I hope that either Santa Claus got it for you over Christmas, or that it's something you might consider picking up over this next new year. Also going to be talking about the podcast a bit and where we're heading in 2024, and some of the things that I have, or some of the things that I'm thinking of, and how to revive the podcast, because a lot of things happened in 2023 that kind of mess things up. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But first of all, Christmas. Normally, I don't get a lot of physical product, physical soundtrack product for Christmas. But this year, there were a few things on my list that I really, really wanted this year. And I think I've talked about this before, where a majority of my collection right now is digital, although all that stuff behind me is physical, and I still like having physical albums, especially from composers John Williams, James Horner, and Jerry Goldsmith. And I'm really trying to fill in the gaps right now of my John Williams collection, and trying to pick up some of those physical expanded editions that I didn't get a chance to purchase when they first came out. Before we get to that, though, I did get a book this year, and it was one that was actually sent to me early by the publishers. I didn't have a chance to read it before it was published. I also didn't get a episode out of the podcast based on the book, which I feel terrible about. Again, just anybody that kind of knows what I went through in 2023 and just how ridiculously busy I was. I was on the road a lot. Just didn't really have a lot of time to dedicate to the show. But I did want to get this in my hands, and it's one that I'm really excited to read. And it is the authorized biography of Elmer Bernstein, written by Peter M. Bernstein. And this one I'm really, really, really looking forward to. Not very long, 250 some odd pages, but kind of really interested into diving into this book particularly, and hopefully I get this done before Jeff Bond's massive Jerry Goldsmith books come to me in the new year. Going back to John Williams and filling in those gaps. One album that I didn't think of picking up at the time, just because I was given the digital files, and I was like, well, I mean, I have the original album. Why do I need to have the physical album? But when I was looking it over and looking at the liner notes and the presentation, I thought, man, I've got to get this. But on the secondary market, this album is worth quite a bit. However, as I was getting my list ready for things that I wanted and sent to the people that I love to hopefully get me these gifts, this particular disc popped up on eBay, and the price was so unbelievable that I actually contacted the seller and said, "Are you sure that this is the price and this is what you're selling?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Great. This is what I want." So I eventually got it for a ridiculous price. And so when I unwrapped this, I was really happy to get the deluxe edition of Dracula that came out from Varese Sarabande Records in 2018. And what really makes this unique is that, one, I don't think we thought we were getting an expanded edition, because I think many people thought that the original tracks were lost. There's a definite upgrade in the sound quality, but the other thing is that this was produced by Mike Matessino, and it also features incredible liner note artwork by the great Jim Titus. And rarely had Varese Sarabande Records kind of gone this way with the stylization, or the stylized booklet that they normally produced. Usually the booklets for deluxe editions were rather plain, black background, white text, a few pictures and whatnot. But Jim Titus put together this fantastic booklet, just beautifully done. Old posters and great atmosphere and just a wonderful layout. And this booklet actually comes separate from the booklet inside, which has more information, including original notes from director John Badham, and the credits. It's just a beautifully produced 2 CD set, and so I'm super happy that I got this for Christmas for a ridiculously low price. Another album that I really wanted, but I didn't pick up, again, had the digital promo, but I thought, man, this is one of my favorite scores of all time, and I really do think that I should probably own this version. And I was super happy when Entrada Records released the 2 CD set, expanded edition of this score, but something about it didn't seem right, and there was actually a lot missing from the album. So when they announced a 4 CD set of this score, which was produced with the cooperation of the Michael Kamen estate, I knew that they got it right. And so that is the 4 CD set of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And I can remember seeing this film for the very first time and just absolutely falling in love with the music. I actually really enjoyed the film. I watched it so many times when it came out on video, mainly because I just replayed that overture over and over again. But to see this score get this deluxe treatment from Entrada Records and done properly with the cooperation of the Michael Kamen estate, they really did the score justice. It just sounds absolutely brilliant, and it's kind of one of those scores that I think all of us would say that, if it's one of your all-time favorites, you probably should physically own it. So this one's still readily available. Pick it up if you can. Really good price. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And then we get to La La Land Records' latest was Black Friday batch. They released 5 albums, and I had to get 3 of them. And I knew that Hook was going to come out sometime. It had to. The 2012 edition wasn't very good. And I think we knew that there were better elements out there and that Mike Matessino would eventually do this score justice. And he did. La La Land Records did. On this absolutely stunning 3 CD set. That, again, beyond the great music that's available and the really interesting 3rd disc with all of those song demos where you can just hear the evolution of the themes that would eventually be part of the score. The presentation of this set is absolutely remarkable. And this is probably the only time that I kind of wish that CDs came in bigger packages, because the artwork is absolutely gorgeous. Again, there's 2 separate booklets. One has just a beautiful layout of all the tracks on each of the discs, and it just is just gorgeous, spanning both pages seamlessly. Again, this is part 3, the disc 3, with the songs, alternates, and source music, and then again the beautiful layout of the credits, and then a wonderful dedication to Leslie Breckus, John Williams' song collaborator, the lyricist of the songs for this film. And then you get the massive booklet, liner notes, which again just looks absolutely stunning, and it is 40 45 pages long. And I mean, just look at that. Don't you wish you just kind of had that as a bigger set? But still on CD. I don't want an LP. But it's just wonderfully crafted. Jim Titus is just the best of the best. I mean, just the chapter for the score presentation. Absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. And if you can get your hands on this one, please do before it sells out. The other two are James Horner scores. The Mask of Zorro, I think, is a James Horner classic. It was my favorite film score from that year. This came out right after the success of Titanic. And as much as I love the 2 CD presentation, I think that if you have the single disc, you have a wonderful presentation of the score. I don't think there's much on here that would say, hey, this is a definite purchase. But for me, as someone who wants to make my James Horner collection as complete as possible, and of course, you can't deny that the liner notes are something that are of significant value as well. And this one is beautifully put together as well. Again, by Jim Titus, who, just the amount of work that he's done this year is absolutely stunning. So, just another gorgeous presentation. This looks magnificent. So, the 2 CD set of James Horner's classic Mask of Zorro, which contains 2 versions of a song that ended up being my wedding song. One sung in English, and the other one sung in Spanish. And yeah, it's a great album. I think that if you're a James Horner completist, this is something that you really, really want. But if you have the original disc and you're kind of humming and hawing, you want to buy something else, you might want to buy the other thing. Just because I think the original presentation of this album is dynamite. Now, the other James Horner album that I think that if you have the original presentation, it's really good. It's a really, really, really good album. But the previous unreleased material on Sneakers is... they're gems. They're absolute gems, and they are cues that I've been wanting to hear separated from the film for a very, very long time. And I kind of wish I had this album when Randy Andrews and I produced our Sneakers episode of the Essential Soundtracks. And I think eventually I'm going to go back and put in these tracks from this album and replace them with the selections that we did use, which were ripped from the film. So there's dialogue and sound effects and music. But this edition is fantastic and really fleshes out the score. It is a career changer for James Horner. The style of music composed here is like nothing we had heard from James Horner before, and would go on to essentially define his more modern sound throughout the 90s. You can hear so much of this score in numerous scores in the 90s, and actually throughout the rest of his career until his untimely death. So this is a super important score in James Horner's filmography, and so I highly recommend picking this one up. I think this is a much more essential album than The Mask of Zorro. The last album that I got, I'm going to say the last, what would you call it, package or collection that I got was one that I was kind of humming and hawing about, just because I own a majority of the stuff that's already on this album, most of the stuff that's on here. But I felt that as a fan of this composer, this collection I think is essential. And so I had to put this one on my Christmas list, and I'm glad I got it. It was ordered late and got it. It arrived, I think, a day before Christmas. So I was able to open this on Christmas Day. And so when I finally picked this up, and it's massive, it's a massive collection. It's The Legend of John Williams. And it is a French-produced collection of John Williams's work. And it spans his career from 1960 to 2022. There's 20 CDs in here, and here's kind of the back of it. And it covers a wide range of his career, including just a few selections from a few scores to complete albums and some other gems. A lot of the gems are on the last disc 20, which is songs, covers, and new readings of John Williams' material. So it is just beautifully put together. One of my favorite pages here is this one, which highlights CD 11 to 14 and covers Steven Spielberg, Indiana Jones, Oliver Stone, and Ron Howard. And that's just gorgeous. That's just absolutely gorgeous. And all the pages are like this. Big stills from the film. I mean, this section with Jaws and E.T. is just, beautiful. And so, again, this is more of the collector mentality in me than the, hey, I got to listen to everything. But I might actually go through one of these days and just listen to all 20 discs and see if it plays well. So there's some stuff missing here for sure. But one of the best things about this about this release is the booklet. And when you take it out, you're first welcomed with this image, which is one of the most iconic shots in The Empire Strikes Back. And then you have this beautiful shot of John Williams conducting. And within this booklet, you get a new interview with John Williams. And then you also get, and then some of the pictures inside, just lovely. And then you also get some new notes this is English and in French. Alan Bergman has something to say, and he talks about it in this section. Then they were able to get Oliver Stone to talk about his collaborations with John Williams, and there was even mention in the notes about Oliver Stone considering him for World Trade Center, but John Williams wasn't free to do it. Jean-Jacques Arnaud, who John Williams worked with on 7 Years Tibet, is the last section in this booklet. And then, of course, it goes through the tracks and the albums and whatnot. It's stunning. Again, like I said, this is more for the collector in me. This is something that I will proudly display behind me. I will look at this often, and I think I will gladly revisit some of the discs and presentations here, because I think they could be wonderful listening experiences. However, there's some weird selections. Like, for instance, the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull selections. They picked the 3 concert suites of Adventures of Mutt and Call of the Crystal and Irina's theme, and then they go right into the finale, which then reprises those themes again. So I found that quite repetitive. They do that again with another score here, and I'm trying to I don't remember which one it was, but it was like concert. Oh, it was Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, I think. So, one, it's Anything Goes, which, yeah, it's an interesting arrangement of the Cole Porter song, but I would say give us some more score. It gives us Short Round's theme, Nocturnal Activities, and then the end credits, which has Short Round's theme in it again anyway. Could have probably done without the end credits, but the end credits has Willie's theme, so I don't know, there's probably a better a way of presenting this. Much like, I mean, instead of having the end credits, you could do what Indiana Jones Last Crusade they did here. They have Indy's very first adventure, No Ticket, Scherzo for Motorcycle Orchestra, and The Keeper of the Grail. So some of the selections are a little bizarre, but anyway, this is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So I would say if you're a hardcore collector of John Williams, and I think after all was said and done, it was about $200 to get here, but for 20 discs, that's quite a bargain. Plus this wonderful 20th disc, which has some interesting arrangements and performances of John Williams's songs and other scores. So, yeah, beautiful stuff. So that's my Christmas haul. All right, let's get into the podcast. So I mentioned this earlier that 2023 really wasn't the greatest year for me and the podcast and producing shows. I was, I hate making excuses, but again, I can't remember how many days I was away, but there were times where I was away from home for weeks, 2 weeks. I think I did that twice, where I was away for like 2 weeks and I'd be home for a week and then I'd be gone for another week. And, you know, I'm doing an incredible project with the Royal Canadian Air Force, and I'm getting to fly in some incredible aircraft and shooting some incredible things that I never thought I'd get a chance to do in my life. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I had in 2023, but they did take away from the podcast. And of course, you know, once you shoot these things, they have to be edited and produced and whatever. And so there's just a ton of work. And so, you know, I was really excited to get back into the podcast on more of a weekly basis when the possibility of getting back on FM radio came about with Butte Island Radio. And that was just an absolute disaster, because from the time that I was offered it, it took forever before I was able to start producing shows. And then once I did, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm getting back into it. I'm doing radio again. Doing radio is a lot of fun. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, it was over within a week. I was no longer producing shows for Butte Island Radio because just the stuff hit the fan. It all went kind of crazy and haywire, and that was it. I was done. And that kind of killed my spirit, because I was really, really amped up and so super excited. And then all of a sudden that's gone. And my motivation to doing new episodes kind of went with it. And I just couldn't, again, at that time, find the time to produce new episodes. And I was like, well, you know, what am I going to do? How do I get back into this? And where do we want the show to go? How do we want the show to evolve? And I thought going back to kind of that hour-long presentation and playing some new stuff and some old stuff and kind of doing it the way that I used to do with W Rock Radio, which is really exciting time for me as well, was something that I was really looking forward to. And for some reason, doing it on my own and not having it kind of out in the world on FM, it just didn't jive with me for some reason. So I took a big break for about 3 months during the summer, especially from the Patreon. And that's another thing that kind of, I was not doing a lot of stuff for the Patreon. And so I'm trying to kind of mentally get myself back into this, especially during the holidays here, because I'm off for 2 weeks, and figure out what I want to do. Ultimately, I would love to get back on the FM dial. I think that's where the show belongs. It's fine as a podcast, but podcasts aren't radio shows. And as much as I like producing a radio show through a podcast, it's a great way of delivering the show to a wider audience, an international audience. But I always felt that it's still a radio show, commentary and music and commentary music. And I think that's just kind of, it's the origin of the show. It's where it began. And I would love to get back on radio somehow. If not, then I would love to start producing somehow live streams of the show. And I've been looking into that, for many years, and I've been inspired by many Twitch streamers that I've been watching who produce music-only streams. And it's there's one in particular that seems to be very successful at it, and he's a fellow Canadian. And if you want to check it out, it's his Twitch stream, his Twitch username or whatever. It's called Vinyl Junkies. Very interesting show. And what the guy does is sits in front of his 2 turntables and basically plays his collection, talks to his audience. I mean, he has a quite sizable audience, and I've seen him when he was brand new and when his audience was quite minute. But he's developed this wonderful rapport with the people that he presents this to, and everybody loves listening to the show live, and they will make requests and they will just talk about particular albums that they're playing. And I think Twitch might be the way to kind of go about doing that, but it's a big commitment. And this guy does shows, I think 3 or 4 times a week. I think it's kind of like his business now. I don't even think he works. I think he just makes money off of Twitch. But I would love to just kind of do something more interactive and do something live. That's kind of where I want to go. But I've got to look into it and see how it's all going to work and whatnot. So I still want to do podcasts, regular podcasts, but I kind of want to do some more in-depth shows that are multi-part programs that really dig deep into a subject. Like, for instance, I've been working on doing a reboot of the Charles Gerhardt show for years. I've got scripts that I'm still rewriting and trying to figure out. But another one that I've been working on recently, and I have it even right here. This is my my cinematic sound notebook. This is a list of all John Williams' classical work, and I've been thinking about doing a show just highlighting all of John Williams' classical material. But again, just trying to figure out how I'm going to dive into that one and how much information am I going to present. And I mean, there's so much research that needs to be done, and there's a lot of listening because I got to go back and listen to all these again. But also I kind of want to know what you guys want to hear with the show. Like, do you want to, like, I don't know how much of my own personal experience behind listening to these pieces and analyzing them is going to be interesting, rather than, I think what's interesting is listening to and hearing about John Williams's process and why he composed it. And I mean, I'm not going to play every single movement from his classical works. It'll just be like a section here and there. But I'm not. I don't have a musical background per se as like music theory, so I really can't get into the structure and why he writes this way and what he's doing and this and that with the notes and orchestrations, whatever. All I could do is talk about how I feel about it. But I think what I really want to do is just kind of get into the facts and get as much information out there about these pieces so that there is a wonderful collection online of all of his classical works available and have them there for people to discover. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. You all know that I tend to just overdo it and write as much as possible, say as much as possible. But let me know what you think about that. What do you want to hear on a show about John Williams' classical material, and what would interest you as a listener if you wanted to hear a series based on every single classical or concert work that John Williams has written. So anyway, that's a big ramble there. But that's kind of where my headspace is at the podcast right now. There's still things I'm going to do with the Patreon. I love the all request shows, so we're going to be doing more of that. There's some rewards that I still have to get to that I'm falling behind on, and I apologize greatly for that. And I hope to get back on a pace with especially my Patreon audience. And if you want to join the Patreon, I'll put the link down below as well. And we have a wonderful little community there. And it's just a joy to, like I said, doing the all request show is wonderful. I love everyone's stories when they're presenting stuff to me, because I usually say, hey, pick a track, but tell me why you want to play it on the show. And then I get these massive letters they're wonderful. So again, so if you want to get involved in that and get involved in the community, we're at patreon.com/cinematicsoundradio. That's it for now. And again, I'd like to do more videos. Not sure when the next one will be, but there's something. Anyway, there's a lot that I'm planning. Don't know how much I will be able to execute, but we'll see. Anyway, until then, thank you very much for watching, and keep listening to the show. And there's a lot of great shows out there, including from all of the other co-hosts here on the network. And until next time, take care and happy listening.